The Toyota CHR. You might not know anything about it, but when I'm done, you're gonna know everything about them. For years, people would say, oh, I'd like a Toyota, but they're boring and they're not cool looking. This isn't boring, it's definitely cool looking. It's basically the modernized version of my Matrix. Okay, the Matrix runs great. This thing is what, 14 years old, still runs like a top. But you gotta admit, it's not the greatest looking vehicle in the world. But check out the CHR. Now that's a good looking car, and it's a Toyota. I'm sure it's going to be extremely reliable. Now the owner of this just bought it because his Kia Soul with 80,000 miles was starting to fall apart. Typical for a Kia. These Toyotas can last 200, 300, 400,000 miles. This has got a good engine in it. It's a big 2-liter with a valve-matic system. Now this engine has 141 horsepower. To take that in consideration, my wife's old Matrix only has 126 horsepower. And you know what she says about it? She drives her Lexus almost all the time. And she said she loves the Lexus because it rides so well. But when she's in the mood to going fast, she drives the Matrix because she says it's zippy. It just wants me to drive it fast all the time. It's only 126 horsepower. Now, if you've been watching me in the past, you know I'm not a gigantic fan of CVT transmissions. And this does have a CVT transmission. But not just any CVT transmission. You can also put it in manual mode. This has a launch gear CVT. It actually launches the first gear with an actual gear. So it doesn't do that motorboat where you put on the motor and it kind of just slides along. No, this thing takes off, as you're gonna find out soon. And check out the interior. It's pretty well held out with some nice color schemes. Super comfy seats. I feel like I'm in somebody's comforter in a bed. These seats are so comfy. As we exit the vehicle, check the door jamb. What does it say? It says, made in Japan. You get a Japanese car, made by Japanese people, in Japan. There's just something about the quality of it. And though technically this is called a subcompact vehicle, when you open it up, it's got plenty of room inside. Look. I fit inside here fine, and I'm no small guy. Your friends aren't gonna whine, I don't want to ride in the backseat of that thing, there's no room. There's lots of room in this thing. But it's also very utilitarian. It's got a lot of space, and when you flip the seats down, you got all kinds of space. You can sleep in this thing, camp in it. It's not just a cool looking toy that you can use on the weekends. You can use this every day for whatever you want. Very smooth just driving around. You wouldn't think you're in a compact vehicle. I don't know why they call them subcompacts. It kind of amazes me. But it's got a very good ride and very good handling. And the twist, these butt, when you step on the gas, hey, these things can go. They got decent acceleration. And the CVT transmission gets phenomenal gas mileage. Now realize, this is what they call a subcompact, technically a tiny SUV. SUVs get horrible gas mileage, right? Well, this thing, you can squeeze out about 30 miles a gallon on a highway when you're driving 70 miles an hour or so. And it gets about 25 miles a gallon in town. That's not bad. If you remember a video I did a while back, I had a Lexus big SUV, and that thing didn't even get 22 miles a gallon on a highway. And if you want to have fun, you can put it in the manual mode, and you can shift it down, you can shift it up, all you want. I mean, it's pretty cool. Now, it may look like a race car on the outside. It's not a race car on the inside, but it's got plenty of zip to get you where you're going. And it's a Toyota. Guess what? It's not going to break down. That's why he got rid of his Kia Soul. It only had 80,000 miles on it, and it was falling apart. And it's actually a surprisingly quiet vehicle for its size. It's a lot quieter than my Matrix. I mean, I'm half deaf anyway, so to me it doesn't really matter. But my wife kind of whines about that and always says, oh, I don't want to take the Matrix, let's get the Lexus out. And I'll say, I don't feel like moving the Matrix, but guess what? I end up moving the Matrix. She wants to ride around in the Lexus. With this, I don't think she'd mind. The owner of this got it because his Kia was falling apart at 80,000 miles. So he buys this, and he's blown away by the difference in how much better it rides, how it doesn't make any noise, and really, his drive out was about $20,000. What are you going to get for $20,000 these days with Japanese Toyota quality that looks as sharp as this and runs that well. Just price around. New, not used. You're gonna get your money's worth if you want something that lasts forever. And with the launch gear, it doesn't have the problems that CVT transmissions do. Oh, you step on the gas and you feel like you're just slipping and sliding all over the place. This isn't that way. The Toyota engineers figured that launch gear out. And for that matter, so did Honda. The Honda ones don't anymore either. And they figured the style engine out. Nice alloy wheels. Plenty wide enough tires for traction and cornering. And I have to say, I like the front end. It's got some style, almost like the Mustang Cobra that I had years ago. And they're starting to get rid of that insane scowl that they put on the Lexus years ago. Thank you, Toyota. I hated that scowl. Great cars, scowling front ends, not my cup of tea. So if you didn't know what a CHR is, now you do, so you can make a wise choice. If you're looking for what they call a subcompact SUV, but it doesn't really seem subcompact to me driving it around. Because remember, these little Toyotas, they're not ugly anymore. Well, the Crosstour, they didn't make them but 9 years. They're nice looking cars. There's nothing wrong with them. They don't make them because it was kind of an in-between car SUV that just didn't make it in terms of how much money it cost and what you got. You can say it even says Accord Crosstour. I personally think they look a lot better than the Accords, but for some reason they decided to stop making them. And of course I know the real reason, because they want to make giant SUVs out of everything, where they make a higher profit margin. They didn't make that many of these, they didn't sell that many of these, but there's absolutely nothing wrong with them. They're good systems. He's never had a problem with it. He changes the oil every 5,000 miles, the transmission every 60, the transfer case every 30, and as you're going to see under the hood, it's a really dependable Honda 3.5 liter variable valve V6 engine that can run forever. And you can see, look, it's dirty here. Well, he doesn't care. It's not leaking to the ground. Yes, you get little seepage. It doesn't hurt anything at all. The downside with this engine is it does have a rubber timing belt, and you want to change that about every 100,000 miles. Now, nobody knows why, but everyone else in the world went to timing chains on their engines. Honda kept the belts on for way too long, which is really weird because they changed to timing chains on their 4-cylinder engines, but most of their V6s, they left timing belts on. I don't know, I guess they just didn't want to switch it over. Who knows? They work fine, but you do have to change the belts about every 100,000 miles. You don't want the engine to blow, because it is an interference engine. If the timing belts break, pistons will hit the valves, it'll cost you a fortune. But he's had no such problems with it. He's changed his at 100,000 miles. He takes care of it. You take care of a Honda, believe me, it'll take care of you. You can polish the headlamps if you want them shiny again, or go aftermarket like I did. And even though this thing's living in Massachusetts, look, the alloy wheels are still in pretty good shape. And when we look under, it's got superficial rust, of course, but the thing still is in pretty good shape. Honda knows how to rust-proof these vehicles. They're not going to rot away like a Chrysler or a Ford. They have good undercoating. They're made correctly. You're going to see rusty pipes. That's just what happens. And if you look here, that's still the original muffler. They want to Americanize it because it says 4-wheel drive. Technically, it's all-wheel drive. You can't turn one off or the other like in a truck where you can go 2-wheel high or 4-wheel high, 2-wheel low, 4-wheel low. It's an automatic system. It drives all 4 wheels. That's all that matters. Who cares about political correctness? Now, you can see this is a phone, right? It's a Blackview. It's a good phone. I use it for analyzing cars. This is called AnyScan 30M. It's made by X-Tools, you can see. And if you've been watching my stuff, I got an X-Tool D8, right? This does almost exactly what that does, only instead of $790, this little kit is $216. Now, granted, it doesn't do immobilizer keys. You can't use it to make a key in your car. Most people aren't going to do that. But this thing does just about anything that the other one does. It's insane what this thing does for $216. And unlike some of the stuff I showed you, like the one I showed you on Japanese cars, it was phenomenal too, but it only worked on Japanese cars. This works on all the cars. So we're going to check this thing out. Key turned down with the engine not running, the battery light's on. And we'll do auto scan. It knows it's a 2010 Crosstour, 16-pin connector, and we'll do an automatic scan. And here we go, just like the big boys. It's scanning an awful lot of things. All you need is a phone. I like Androids. You can see it's going through 48 different systems. This little thing is going through 48 systems. Now this X-Tool dongle tool works quite well, but you notice it is slower than the $800 one because instead of having a giant processor, you're just using your phone. This is a Blackview. It's an okay phone. You know, I use it for analyzing cars. It's not a phone. I don't even have a chip in it for using it for making calls because I only use it to analyze car products. Give it a few minutes. We're now on number 16 out of 48. And it's probably going to take about 8 minutes to do the whole system. So while we're going through that, you can see he stuck his phone up here for navigation. But it did come with sat nav. Of course, it's an older car, so it's got, yes, a compact disc CD changer. But it's got everything you normally want to need, the modes, the heating, air conditioning. Now, it's got some steering wheel basics too, so you can run a bunch of the stuff off the steering wheel. These were sort of a luxurious car in their time. You know, it is 12 years old now, but it still rides quite well. And being a luxury car, it's got some wood grain, but the only problem he's got is the driver's door card's kind of coming apart here. That was made a little bit cheap. And it's got a decent sunroof if you like sunroofs. Lots of room in the back seat. And a cute little trunk there in the back. I have to say the seats are incredibly comfortable, even though they're 12 years old. Well, we're getting there. We're now on 47 to 48. Now we're done. Go through everything. Normal, normal, normal. There's a failure on the BCM, the anti-lock brakes. So it's all minor stuff. We'll see what it is. The engine's okay. We'll see what the failure of the ABS is. Malfunction of the powertrain control module for the ABS. Could be a wiring problem in circuit. You don't expect ABS systems to work that good on a car that's 12 years old anyways. And that could be as simple as the battery replaced. We'll erase that code. We'll see if anything will happen later. We'll clear it. And if it doesn't come back, it was just a power failure. Now we'll see something's wrong with the airbag system. We'll diagnose that. And it says passenger airbag cutoff indicator is shorted. Again, that could easily be an electrical problem, but if it does come back, you don't expect airbags to work that well in a 12-year-old car. Buckle up with your seatbelt. But we'll erase it for now. The code is the BCM. It has one code. We'll see what that is. You can see if you use a phone, it's going to be a little slower than a separate computer, but it still works perfectly fine. And yet, it's another electronic supposed failure. We're going to just clear them all. And if they don't come back, could have been the battery was changed, could have been a minor flaw. All minor things, actually. It has nothing to do with the transmission or engine. And as you can see now, that's all cleared. So, let's look at the engine data. And you can see this little tiny device may only be $219, but it does 174 points of data. 174. They're checking the data. You can see it pops up pretty fast. It's not that slow. It's an awful lot of information. Look at it all. It is insane. Now, we're going to kind of look at fuel trim, see how it's running. The information on the variable valve timing, oil pressure on the rocker arm. It's amazing. It's a 6-cylinder. There's the misfire, 000, not misfiring at all. And we can see the air-fuel ratio is working perfectly fine. 1.00, that's perfect. Every once in a while it goes 1.01, so it's, you know, 1/100% off. But that's Hondas for you. They're excellent, well-made cars. Can last a long time. Now, the guy does maintain it. Changes the oil every 5. Changes the tranny every 60. This is 4-wheel drive system, all-wheel drive, but they call it 4-wheel drive. He changes differential fluid every 30,000 miles. He's taking care of this car. He bought it used with 40,000 miles on it, and now it's got 182,000 miles. He's definitely got his money's worth. Considering that he's around 75 and he's had one lung removed from cancer already, I'm kind of guessing this car may outlast him. He definitely doesn't need to buy another one. And I do have to say, so far, this AnyScan A30M is amazing. Gotta say, these guys at X-Tools make some pretty good stuff. Hey, this is $219. The D8 that I have is like $700 something. This does pretty much almost the same stuff, except like I say, it doesn't make keys. But how often are you making keys? Are you a locksmith? Probably not. So, if you're looking to buy a Honda Crosstour, don't be put off by the fact that they don't make them anymore. There's nothing wrong with them. They were just a wrong price point for Honda. They went more to full SUVs than something that's kind of part sedan, part small SUV. There's nothing wrong with these cars. They're fun to drive. They can last a long time. And if you live in the snow belts, hey, the all-wheel drive system works quite well. You're really not going to get stuck if you put decent tires on it. Now, you know the truth about them. They may not make them anymore, but it doesn't mean there's anything wrong with them. Well, here's an interesting vehicle. A Honda Pilot with 206,000 miles on it. He bought it used. He's put over 100,000 miles on it. He paid like 12 grand used. Not bad for 100-something thousand miles, and it's still going strong. Originally, they made these in Canada, but now they make them in Alabama. Now, he has done some modifications, and it's stuff that I agree with. As we go under the hood, which is kind of an odd place, but there we go. He had it set up so it turned off that cylinder deactivation system so it didn't burn oil. The problem with these Honda engines is because of their tight tolerances. When you have variable cylinder deactivation, what happens is one piston side, that's hot, you deactivate it, that's cold, another one's hot. The expansion and contraction of the metal would make the actual pistons and the block itself, instead of being perfectly round, it would make it more oval shape so that it was no longer sealing right and they would burn oil. He was smart. He had that deactivated so it's not burning any oil. I do advise people to do it with these engines. Some engines, it doesn't affect it as much, but these are aluminum and they're tight tolerances, and that difference in temperature equalization is hot, cold, when they all should be hot, does affect it. So I do advise turn it off. It still has a timing belt, and the brand new ones with this V6 engine also have rubber timing belts. Honda just didn't want to go into the 21st century. I don't know. I guess they're only planning on building them so long, they don't want to redesign it all. But come on now, you know, everyone else has used timing chains that can last forever, and even though these run good, if those belts break, they're interference engines. Pistons hit the valves, boom, there goes the engine. He's had a timing belt change, so he doesn't have to worry about it. It generally lasts well over 100,000 miles. It's just kind of an annoyance that Honda kept such an old design because they're too cheap to put timing chains in them and redesign the whole thing. Maybe they're thinking electric cars and then they won't make these anymore, but really, Honda, join the 21st century. Put timing chains in your V6 engines, you know? Hey, let's face the facts. You got timing chains in your 4-cylinder engines. Why don't you put them in the V6s too? Now, the owner of this also has a Yukon. He still has it, but the Yukon kept falling apart on him, so he thought he'd get something more reliable, so he bought this Honda Pilot. He's got 100-something thousand miles he's put on it, and he only paid 12 grand for it, so he's certainly getting his money worth out of it. Now, he says it's not the perfect vehicle, but you know, it served him pretty well. As of this year, the paint's starting to chip off. Here we go. The paint indeed is coming off because, you know, this is one of the early jobs. They started using that water-based primer crap, and so the paint's starting to come off. Hey, the plating on the alloy wheels, it looks kind of crappy. But considering that it lives on the East Coast, hey, all the salt they use in the winter. Now, he has had to replace the ball joints on it twice, because he originally replaced them and he had them replaced with Moog. And everybody who knows about suspension parts, Moog was a really good suspension company. Moog suspension parts, everybody liked them. But as he found out, he replaced these, because they do rust out from the salt they put on the road in the winter. He replaced them with Moogs. But 3 years later, they broke again. And he said, well, that's okay, because Moog have lifetime warranties. Well, they don't anymore. He had a 3-year guarantee and they broke, showing that, yes, indeed, they don't make them like they used to, including Moog. So Moog, maybe you can make them a little better, but you probably don't care at all, because you're probably making everything in China cheaper, and you're making so much money, you don't care. But back in the day, he would have been correct. All the Moog suspension parts that I've replaced, if you go back 10 years or further, and I've been working on cars for 56 years, I never had to buy another one from Moog. But then again, I did live in Texas. And the salt is in the ocean, not on the road, so they don't really rust much. They sell hundreds of thousands of these every year. And as I said earlier, this baby was made in Alabama. Now really, the leather seats have held up pretty well. He's a big man and he squashed them down a little here, but they're not torn. And the back seats are in primo condition. And there's a lot of room in the back when you fold those back seats in. He's got these nice Motor Trend rubber covers, and there's the seats. They come up. And there's a reasonable amount of room for the seats when they pop up. And as we look inside, it's got a DVD CD player, you know. There's a DVD, there's a CD player, AM, FM, but it still has USB aux stuff on it. Isn't worn out yet, a lot of space in there. And it's even got this little Rolodex type thing. You can put more crap in there too. So we'll hook up our Autel here. Older vehicle, this Autel is fast. It's already read it. We'll do standalone diagnosis. Pilot 2012, okay. Older car, this Autel is pretty good. It will do a topology, all the CAN systems, so here we go. And what's going through them? Got a nice setup. Tach to the side, fuel temperature gauge, speedometer right in the middle, little warning system here, nice dash unit. And it's got the map and everything on it. I personally use a phone. Phones are more accurate as far as I know, but it's got best route and all that stuff if you keep the software upgraded. But you can see it's got a little attachment here for power, and then he's plugged in as double USB. Now it's done. He didn't think there were any codes because his scan tool didn't pick up anything, but there are 3 codes. It probably won't mean much, just since he did have the cylinder manager system deactivated, so they're all running all the time. He'll probably have a code for that. Number 1 trouble code is powertrain system failure. That's because he had that deactivated, and it knows that. I'll erase it, but it'll certainly come right back because it knows that that's been disabled. And then there's the last code, the tire pressure monitoring system. Right rear tire pressure sensor failure, left rear tire pressure sensor failure. They get all the batteries wear out. Who wants to spend money on that stuff? We'll erase it, but that one most certainly will come back. But now we'll start the car and we will check out the main information. So we'll go to PCM, get that data. We'll go to live data and we'll start analyzing that. Remember, black is good, red is bad. Fuel ratio is pretty good. 1 is perfect, that's perfect. A little bit over, a little bit under. Running pretty good considering that this thing does have 206,692 miles on it. Air fuel ratio is almost perfect. 1 is perfect, 0.99 to 1.01. Pretty close to perfect for a car. It's got this many miles on it. It's a Honda. You can see the misfire, 000. 654321000, running perfectly. So here we go, and it's got a backup camera. It's an older car, so it's not particularly well pixelated, or the color doesn't work all that good, but you get a pretty good idea where you're going when you're backing up. Hey, it's high, and since it's so big, it won't be too bad on these horrendous Rhode Island roads. You could feel we're going over it, but it's a very smooth ride. It's not like a regular Honda that's a lot tighter. These have a much cushier ride, which is one of the reasons that people like buying them. Realize this is just like a brother of an Acura MDX. It's the same basic platform. You know the time of the day, you can't miss it there. The horrible intersection, but nobody's coming. Here we go. Once it gets going, transmission shifts like a dream. Hey, it's still going smooth. 200-something thousand miles. And here comes an ambulance. So we better get over to the other side. Not much of an ambulance. He's going like a turtle. He's not even catching up to us. Well, I guess these days, if you're in a hurry, you're better off driving yourself. Here comes the ambulance. So we'll go over here. Still very smooth vehicle. And really for its size, you get 22 miles a gallon. Yeah, not the greatest, but it's a big, heavy vehicle. He also has a Yukon, which gets 15 to 17 on a highway and much worse in town. And unlike this dependable Honda, it's not that dependable. That's why he bought the Honda. He kept it because he can tow stuff with it, but hey, the Honda's much more reliable. So there you have it, a Honda Pilot, 206,000 miles. Still runs like a top. Sure, it's not perfect, but to me it's like the perfect old work SUV. Man, his wife had to thank me for letting him bring it over here because she forced him to clean it out. I suppose it was a gigantic mess before he bought it here. You did see under that Rolodex, there's still a bunch of crap hiding in there. But, hey, a great work SUV still. Who knows how long it'll last. It's a Honda. And now it still shifts good. The engine runs fine. But he did disable the cylinder deactivation. And if you do get one of these, my advice is do the same thing he did. Get it deactivated. Then you won't warp the internals of the engine. And you won't have any problem with them burning oil. If he hadn't deactivated that, I've never seen one of these with 200-something thousand that didn't burn oil if they left that system in. So if you never want to miss another one of my new car repair videos, remember to ring that bell.